Arise, minions, and welcome to unMadeGaming. We are here. We are back after a bit of a break. We didn't have one in July, so yeah, a bit of a break. I was gone for most of July for training purposes, but yeah, we're back for another one of our monthly Ask a Lich Q&A videos. We do have about eight or nine questions from our Discord that are put there by our Patreons. If you want to be a Patreon and support this channel, the best way to support the channel always is being a Patreon. Link in the description down below, patreon.com/unMadeGaming. Our bot is currently not working at the moment, so I can't add links. However, if you'd like to watch live and ask questions, go ahead and just type in the word question and then type your question right after that so that we can know and pull that out of the chat and answer that question. Yeah, so let's see. Gee, you're not late. I literally just started. I just turned it on. I was trying to fix the bot, and the bot is going to be a little bit of an issue. I'm working with the tech side of OBS to fix that bot for us. So, questions. Why so cool? I just got back from the gym. I'm basically just like a big buff boy. No, not cool at all. Super lame dad. So G has been taking the literal minutes of the questions asked in the Ask a Lich thing, and she's been calling the beginning part of this State of the Grave, which is a thing I used to do over on Patreon, which I should probably do again. So, State of the Grave, what's been going on recently? What's been going on? Our last Ask Lich was in June. What has happened since June? Went away for military training for a few weeks to upstate New York. That was very difficult, but also awesome. It was a very good training. I came home, had a little minty bee, and then that's really it. I am enrolled in school. I'll be starting school next week. I am taking an acting class. That's fun. Theater acting. For the theatrical. So should be a cakewalk on that class. I'm taking finances, which is going to be a nightmare, and some U.S. history bullshit class that I am required to take that I don't care about. Yes, being a student of theater will in fact make me more insufferable. That is correct. What else is new? Mike, my roommate, has gotten us, the whole house, firmly, deeply entrenched in the world of Magic, so much to the point where my girlfriend Cinda wants to play every night. So that's mostly what we've been doing. Almost every night we have a three-way Commander match, a three-pod of Commander, and I am the losingest player in the house. I have 2 wins out of like 12 or 13 matches. But I purposely have a deck that is just meant to be annoying, so I'm not really out here trying to take prizes. What else is new? My kiddo went to summer camp. That was cool. That was pretty dope. And if you can't tell by these guns here, I've started going to the gym, and that sucks. It sucks hard. It's very sweaty and painful. My body hurts. It hates me. But yeah, we've been going to the gym, trying to lose some poundage so I can achieve, so I can go back to military school and I can get the next rank above where I am. It's from a sergeant. Wow. From a sergeant to a staff sergeant. One day I'm going to crave the gym. Absolutely not. That sounds satirical and like a nightmare. If I crave the gym, someone stop me. Someone do something about it. I think that's all I have for the State of the Grave. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all I got right now. But from there, I'm going to segue. There's two questions here that both kind of dovetail from the State of the Grave into just general conversation here. G asks what the fall schedule looks like for unMadeGaming. The fall schedule looks like we are supposed to be having a VASN game in September. The person running that game is currently going through a move, so they have all the grace in the world for that. And I told them I would follow up with them. But the plan is to try to get that going for September. And it's going cast is going to be me. I'm going to be a player, which is fun. And my partner Cinda will be making her first on-screen appearance in a tabletop capacity here on the channel. She very much wants to play VASN. And then I'm trying to get like a bub in there. I'm going to get a bub involved in that. And I'm also trying to get an Anne Richmond involved in that. So we'll see how that pans out. But we have at least half the cast sorted. So we'll see how that goes. So a VASN campaign should be starting in the fall. Should be starting in September. The going plan is also to have Atari Midnight start in September. That's going to need some following up on. There's some stuff happening with Atari Age of Always, Atari Twilight Age of Always, that I need to verify if that needs to be done before the start of Atari Midnight, how that segues into that. Yes, yeah. Yeah, so that's the going start of the fall season. I also have an idea to do maybe like a random couple of one-shots set in the One Ring Shattered Crown universe. Yeah, we had a two-part one-shot for Orphan, KP's character, that resulted in several other very well-liked, supposed to be one-shot, like NPCs brought to life by the players. And they have sort of become embroiled into the larger canon. So perhaps a one-shot involving each of those remaining characters would be an interesting thing to do. There's also some talk of, I don't know when this is going to happen, and this might be a hot scloozy. So keep your ears peeled. I believe the Alien RPG is coming to the Pod by Night network in audio form. We're going to be doing an editing situation where it's going to be edited and cleaned up nicely and added to the podcast. So you can get the full podcast treatment, which would be very cool. Yeah. What else? What else is... an old friend of mine, not so speedruns on the internet, Speedy, has reached out and would like to come to the channel and run a game, probably Blades in the Dark. I don't know when that's going to happen, but that is going to happen in the future. What else? What else is going on? I think that's all I have planned right now. Obviously, I'm also making plans for PAX Unplugged. If you are watching if you are watching the channel and interacting in any way, in December, like December 7th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, right around that time frame. 6th, 7th, 8th, exactly, is PAX Unplugged in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I will be there. My partner will be there. A lot of other creators and amazing, talented people will be there. I'm trying to be there speaking on a number of panels. We'll see how that goes. But I went last year, and I've gone every year since its inception. But we had a whole bunch of the unMadeGaming community show up last year, and I believe most of them are showing up this year. We had a couple of little get-togethers. We did some karaoke. and we played some games and had some fun, had some meals, and enjoyed each other's company. So that will be happening in December 6, 7, 8. So check that out. Did I not tweet out that I was live? I sure didn't. I sure absolutely didn't. You know what happened? I went live, and then I was immediately trying to troubleshoot the bot, and I didn't do that at all. Gee. So, yeah. So that's my life right there for you. Let me go ahead and do that right now for you. God, I am just a loathsome streamer. It's just a terrible time. Just a terrible bad time. Who knows what I'm doing? Not me. Not me. What is it? August now? August. Here we go. We'll just live tweet a little tweety tweet here. This is professional streaming at its finest. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here to do. Professionally stream. I don't know when that starts, but it's clearly not right now. That's for sure. We all want that BTS. Yeah, that's true. Let's see. Let's go to the live control room, is what they call it on the YouTubes. That's fun. It's a fun name. All right. Let's tweet this. Posted. There we go. There's a tweet for you. And I'm sure you're going to want me to go put that in Discord, so let me go do that so I don't get yelled at. There we go. There he is. There's the streamer we know and love. Yeah, so that's what the fall schedule looks like. We definitely have some Vastin coming. We have some Atari Twilight coming. Maybe some Blades in the Dark in the future. And obviously PAX. PAX is going to be a big one. I'm putting a lot of thought into PAX. My partner and I think I want to do some recording of definitely the panels that I'm on, if I'm on any, which fingers crossed that I'm on some. And I think I want to do perhaps some interviews. I have the equipment to do some interviews. I have lavalier mics and that kind of thing. So perhaps doing something like that. Perhaps some game playing. Perhaps I'll play some Magic while I'm there. Yeah, so that's my plan for the fall. Gee, I appreciate you as well. And you asked the question, as in Dot and Bub's Pod by Night. Yes, one and the same. Dot and I have conversed about it, and half the cast, 2/5 of the cast is on Pod by Night, and in season 2, Maggie was also there, and so. Tracy was also there. Tracy was also there, and so that's another one of the members of Pod by Night. So we're gonna toss it over there and see what happens. There's gonna be some shout backs to the channel, and maybe we'll drive some new and interesting traffic from there to here. So that'll be very cool. Bouncing from that question, G also asks, what's new on the horizon for the unMadeGaming cinematic universe? I'm going to take the term new loosely. So obviously we have, if you've been watching the channel for a bit of time, there have been some canonical adjustments to what is and is not in the unMadeGaming cinematic universe, or what is an alternate universe. What we know so far is that the Vastin campaign, Mundus Novus, is set in the same world, universe, timeline as Glenbrook, our Tales from the Loop campaign. Those games directly or indirectly tie into each other in some capacity, and I think there will be more of that. I don't know. I do have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of ideas. I have a scattered brain, and I have no one to force me to do things. No one to hold my feet to the coals, the toes to the coals, as they say. But I have to obviously finish writing the fucking Carnival of Screams module that I started, like, I don't know, 2 years ago. I have to spruce up the mystery landscapes for Mr. Black, for the chorus, write a new one for the Veil, and then I'll publish those. I'll probably do an update of the actual Glenbrook setting guide and update that on drive-through. I was working on and am still working on the Camp Nowhere setting, which is also in Glenbrook. It's just a summer camp version, so you can have classic 80s horror movie summer camp situations going on there. I also do want to do an official write-up of Coven Crest Manor, which is the headquarters from the Vaesen Mundus Novus game. I'm also working on, I'm currently working on taking all of the Vaesen from the core book and from Mythic Britain and Ireland and researching the rough approximation of an American equivalent to that creature. And then writing a bit of, like, in every single Vaesen entry for the monsters, as it were, there is a narrative, like, journal entry. So I'm currently working on doing a rough American approximation of what that creature would be in our cryptids world, and then writing an American journal entry for those places. And I've done a bunch of them. I just haven't told my players that yet, I don't think. But I've done a bunch of them, and a bunch of them have been updated on our Roll20. So I'm working on that, which will probably be like a free supplement that I'll just throw up on DriveThruRPG to be like, hey, here's the American versions. But then I probably want to do, like, an American setting guide for Vaesen, or at least a New England setting guide. America seems fairly broad. But a New England setting guide of some capacity. So that's what's going on with the unMadeGaming cinematic universe. I also want to do... I had the idea for this, and I haven't really... It's just an idea percolating in my mind. But I kind of want to do, like, a 1920s Vaesen. Because Vaesen is supposed to be set in the amorphous 1800s, and obviously ours is set in America, and the 1800s was a rough time. Let's sugarcoat that. It was a bad time in America. The 1800s was a fucking god awful, pretty significant bad time in history. So obviously we have. Our setting is post bellum, so post war. So ours is in the later 1800s. But the idea of, jumping, 40 to 50 to 60 years in the future to the 1920s, and doing that kind of thing would, I think, be very cool. The struggle I have is, as Melissa has mentioned in the chat, that it would have to differentiate from Call of Cthulhu, and everything I do has a little bit of Cthulhu, of Eldritch horror to it. So, yeah, I'd have to make it different enough to not feel exactly like Call of Cthulhu. But that's something I'm toying around with. I like the idea of a 1920s Vaesen game, because we've seen in the actual plays in the unMadeGaming cinematic universe that the group called the Men of Letters is still active in the 1980s, at least in some capacity. So they either there must be a surviving member or some surviving lineage of this group that the current campaign of Vaesen in the 1800s is playing through. Yeah, it would be very interesting to see the society through the lens of time. Would be very interesting. Would that be around the time frame of Paradise City? No, Paradise City is current day. I think you're thinking of Men of Letters. Men of Letters, the Cypher System game, was set in the 1920s. Skagith! Dude! Holy shit! Oh man, long time no see, buddy. That's awesome. How have you been? Yeah, Men of Letters was set in like the mid 1920s, I want to say, and that is also alternate universe. That is probably the first thing I decided was going to be in the multiverse. Paradise City is also multiverse. Yeah, I think it would be interesting to see the Men of Letters through a passage of time. Would be fun. Would be fun to see. Let's see. We're not answering a lot of hard pressed questions, and I think that's fine. I like where we're at with these questions. Some catching up, some planning, some plotting, all that fun stuff. All good as always. The stress of moving. Are you moving countries, just locations, homes, etc.? Another question we have here from our very own Melissa. I'm going to read these sort of back to back. They do tie into each other. The first one is, how much do you relate personally to Mimir? Mimir is a character that I played in the podcast Dark Fortunes. And the second question, the follow-up question would be, what would it take to get Dark Fortunes back? Yeah, interesting. So let's start with the first question, is how much do I relate to Mimir personally? Mimir is incredibly thinly veiled. Yeah. Mimir, there's not a lot of degrees of separation between Mimir and Mike. If I were to ever play if I got isekai'd into D&D, and I would have to pick a class, I would absolutely pick the class Warlock. Warlock is my go-to. Mimir was a Warlock, as well. And his, what seduced him to the side of a Warlock, was, knowledge. Was the thirst for knowledge, and that is the same for me. I enjoy learning stuff, and I enjoy diving into like Wikipedia holes as I'm researching for all kinds of stuff for games. But regardless of my feelings towards the act of learning, I am in love with the idea of just having so much knowledge. I am very much one of those people that, like, if I were to become a vampire, I would just get 7 degrees. I would just learn so many things, and just be smart. Yeah, so Mimir's hunger for knowledge is very much the knowledge is power. I do find that, like, the more things you know, the more, like, I don't know, the more... I'm a talker, so, like, the more things I know about, the more, even if it's tangentially, the more conversations I can hold with people. It's like, if you've ever been in a conversation where you know nothing, and they're like, yeah, this is sports, here's hockey words, and you're like, I don't know anything about hockey, or what to do here. and you're like, I want to leave this conversation so bad. But I like to know just enough about everything so that I can hold a conversation, enough with somebody so that I don't look like I'm just talking out of my butt. So yeah, Mimir. Also, Mimir very much was charming in a cocky, sort of asshole kind of way. And I very much feel like Mimir and I share that. I have the personality that is, people know within minutes whether they like me or not. And I'm not for everyone. And that's fine. So he very much has like a cocky sort of like, I am the star. There's a famous, it's not Leno, it's the other guy. Larry King. There's a famous Larry King quote where he says something. Shit. Now I say it's a famous quote. Now I forget what it is. It's a quote where he says something like, "This is my world, and you're all just living in it." And I occasionally use that phrase in my normal life. And I've joked with my partner and said that I'm the main character of the story. And that is very much Mimir. Is at no point in time did he ever think that anyone else was the main character. And I easily find myself falling into that trope every once in a while. Like it's not hard. Like to get yourself wrapped up in your own head and be like, oh, and then you have to remember, oh, I have to worry about other things and other people and other stuff like that. It's an interesting self-assessment. Yeah. So Mimir is, and Mimir also very much, whether it was true or not, oftentimes would believe that he was the smartest person, or at least the most clever person in the room. And I have also been accused of that my entire life. Every parent-teacher conference, every fight with an older, with a more senior person to me, was, you think you're the smartest person in the room, has been said to me an innumerable amount of times. So there's not the biggest difference between Mimir and myself was that he's a bird. That was the biggest difference. I also made sure to make him a very specific kind of raven, and I have an affinity for ravens. I have a ring with ravens on them. I have big black wings on my back as a tattoo. I'm getting a raven tattoo at some point. I have an affinity for that animal. When I think back on him, he definitely reminds me of you. Yeah, there was barely role-playing. Barely role-playing there. Skag says, if I transported into a fantasy world, I would be a sneaky thief, but only from nobles. Cat burglar like Robin Hood, giving back to the poor, but keeping the good loot for myself. Yeah, that's perfect. I like that. I like that idea. I have far less grandiose goals. I just like to be the smartest guy in the room, and I like to be charming about it. I like to be charming and smug about it. And then the follow-up question to that from Melissa, as I had mentioned earlier, was what would it take to get Dark Fortunes back? Unfortunately, an act of God. So since the time of Dark Fortunes, its untimely demise, the Dungeon Master, Johnny, has almost entirely left the tabletop streaming scene, and is just sort of living his life. We still keep in touch. I still see him at PAX. I can tell you that he is currently developing a card game, a board game that uses cards in the same vein as For the Queen. So definitely check that out once he releases it. He's probably going to do a Kickstarter for it. For those of in the community that are going to PAX, I'll see if I can bring him around. So yeah, Johnny hasn't entirely left the scene. He still like pokes around and like he lurks more than not. McLokin has entirely left the scene. I think McLokin actually left. I think he moved. I think he got married. I actually haven't heard from McLokin in a little bit, and I should probably reach out to him. And then V is obviously still doing amazing things. We see V around all the time. And then Rory, I'll be honest, I randomly bumped into Rory on TikTok when we first started the idea for the podcast. And I have no idea what happened to Rory. I assume he's doing good things, but my TikTok got inundated with all kinds of other crazy shit, and he was not in the TTRPG actual play scene. He was on a different scene that sort of abutted against tabletop games on TikTok, and TikTok creators don't often transfer to Twitter. And that's mostly where I operate. So I have lost track of where Rory was. So what would it take to get Dark Fortunes back? Some sort of act of God. I don't know that McLokin wants to come back to streaming. I'm fairly certain that Johnny is at most on the fence at all. And I think we've talked about it. And if he ever did, it would only be on this channel, much like what Greg does. But yeah, I don't foresee that happening. It sucks because there's absolutely nothing. The show was great, and the content was very good. I do have a sour taste in my mouth for the company that I worked with to make Dark Fortunes happen, which is entirely me. And if the stars aligned, I would obviously put my own opinions to bed and do that. But I will say I am still in the process of making a new podcast. Have I released anything about it? I'll release some shit if I haven't already. It will be a D&D podcast. I am with all the one D&D 2024, whatever the hell they're calling this nonsense. I don't know if it's going to be that D&D or if it's going to be 5e. Either way, it's supposed to be backwards compatible or something. But it's going to be a D&D podcast, and it's going to use the Ouroboros Coils of the Serpent world setting and classes and other stuff, written by Chris Metzen, who is the voice of Thrall and has a new position at Blizzard that I cannot remember what it was, but I think he used to be the VP of Story. I don't know what his new position is, but that's what the podcast is going to be. And the short list so far is that Bub is interested and Zach Clay is interested. So that's two cast members, and I will be GMing it. As much as I want to play in that world, I will be GMing it. So that's currently in the works. I'm rereading the book now. I am plotting what the campaign would look like or could look like, and then I'm also trying to source some ideas because currently that is a very mask cast. So yeah, that is in the future there. Let's see. What other Forever GM? Skag, I luck out in that I probably am I will say one of few tabletop creators that I play as much as I GM. I definitely play quite a bit, and I am very fortunate to be in that position. Right now, I'm running a shitload, but that only just started maybe in the second half of this year. Before that, I was playing and everything. So I am very lucky when it comes to that. Let's see. No one asks, which is G. You just started a brand new campaign through Start Playing Games called Between the Wasteland and Sky. Tell us something about each character that excites you as a GM. Oh, shit. This is the moment when you didn't read the rest of the question before you started reading the question. Something that excites me about the GM. That's hard. That's hard because I don't want to give anything away. This is a really cop-outy answer, but it's true without giving away a shitload of plot stuff. Every character has a unique and very unconnected, sordid, complicated backstory. Like in a lot of the games I've done, it's fairly easy to take like, oh, okay, this is your backstory, this is your backstory, and here's where they intersected. Very much less so. I have a couple of points of like not direct intersection, but definitely like faction-y intersections. But yeah, everyone's reason for being on the run, is what I'll call it, is amazing. Like on a cast of 6 players, in a very Firefly kind of way, every character is completely unique. Their story is completely unique, and like why they're running from something is all running from or to something is also completely unique. As a GM, it is a bitch to add 6 new plots to a what is essentially a space West Marches game. But it's very cool, and I'm having a lot of fun trying to weave those backstories into the world that I've created, the verse that I've created, the universe I've created. Yeah, so you didn't get an individual answer, but that's my answer. Is I'm very excited to see how everyone's, because right now everyone's playing their character. I used the phrase the other day. They're playing their character. They're playing their character to the page. So like what they wrote on the page for their character backstory is exactly what I'm seeing come across in the role play, and I'm loving that. But I get to see all of the other things that are on the page that are like the complicated, messy knives that everyone's just handed me, and I'm very excited to see how these narratives develop, how they come to fruition. And how they rear their ugly head and make problems for everyone else, which is going to be fun. Definitely fun. So, additional question from G. Maybe an additional question. Tips for connecting stories that don't connect naturally. So, question from G. Tips for connecting stories that don't connect naturally. That is a good question. You really... This is one of those complicated answers where you have to work with players. I think you can't create in a vacuum as a GM. So a lot of you have unconnected stories, and I don't think they need to connect. Like, here's what I'll say. In our campaign, in our Cyber System campaign, The Rise, you are all very different characters from very different areas. But for that game, there was enough nuance, not nuance, there was enough fantasy bullshit and black holes in your stories that it was very easy for me to connect a bunch of stuff. Like, you all had something that I was like, okay, cool, this is a secret you have, or this is like an unknown that you have. I know exactly what that is. Whereas in Between the Wasteland and Sky, that's not the case. I have an idea, and you guys wrote very specific characters. So for me, what I'm focusing on is not actually connecting them together. And to be like one like a myriad of strings into a single rope, right? What I'm focusing on is connecting them to plots. So each character's bullshit that they're dragging around is connected to some kind of plot. Because for this game, I don't want to put a neat little bow on it. What I want is everyone's backstory to come up at some point and then be a problem for everyone else. Because the concept for the show was or for the campaign rather, was Firefly meets Cowboy Bebop. And spoilers for like a, I don't know, 30-year-old show. In Cowboy Bebop, he is an assassin on the run. They think he's dead, and his partner is a cop. And the moment that the gang, the crime organization, the syndicate, finds out that Spike Spiegel is alive, becomes a problem for literally everyone in his life. And I love that concept of like the six of you all have shit you're running from. You all sort of fell into this ship and we're like, hey, we're just going to make things work. And at some point, like a Hydra, something is going to come out and you're going to be like, fuck, what is this? And this now becomes everyone's problem. There's not going to be a way that a single person can solve their own shit. It's going to take the whole crew. And I love the idea that like some people may not agree with that. Like some characters may not agree with your course of action, and I like that there's gonna be headbutting about this, but that is also an aspect of Firefly and of shows like The Expanse where there is a found family, is that not everyone can agree on the same thing, but ultimately it is your story arc, so how you choose to navigate it, whether people like it or not, that is how it is chosen to navigate. And the fact that all of you have such disparate backstories, I think is going to be very cool in how you deal with that. Now, there have been some backstories that like you guys have sort of bumped into each other. Like I know that the character Anya and the character Addie, their backstories they bump into each other. And I think I know of at least one other character who bumps into another character which has not been discussed anywhere. Yeah, so I think there's like a lot of like places where like you guys ran in different similar, like you were in the same place at the same time kind of situation. Yeah, so that's I wouldn't connect them together if they don't naturally connect together. But what I would do is find a way to connect them to plots or make plots around them that the players are going to have to interact with at some point. Like tying them to factions or tying them to locations that are like at some point the ship will, or at some point the party will go to this location and have to deal with a problem, right? Yeah, I think that's how I would answer that question. What is another question we can answer here? We only have a few minutes left. Do I have... Okay, this is a good one. Melissa says, do I have any question for playing a charismatic character when you are not a charismatic person? Yes, I do. I don't have... Let me rephrase that question. Let me rephrase my response, rather. I don't have advice because I don't have... That's not me. But what I do have are some things that I think could be useful. Or I hope they'll be useful. So, advice for playing a character, a charismatic character when you are not a charismatic person. I think in the times when you are playing a character of any kind that is so different from you as a person, one, great, kudos to you, outstanding. But two, find a source of media that is like that character. Right? Like, I have a character in a Blades in the Dark campaign. His name is Nixarian Destarosi. And he is heavily based on the sociopathic tendencies of Moriarty from Sherlock, from the BBC's Sherlock. It's basically Moriarty if he got his hands dirty. So find the kind of charisma that you're looking for in a different source of media, whether that's a cartoon, a movie, a TV show, another podcast, another actual play, something to grasp onto, to be like an anchor. And then really it's adopt mannerisms and affectations. I think the hardest part for like role playing something that you're not used to would be knowing when to step in. So it would be like if you're watching a show with a charismatic person, how often do they interject into the conversation? How often do they make themselves? Do they actively seek out the spotlight? That kind of thing. So I would say that would be my biggest tip for that, would be to find a character that meets the level of whatever, charisma, sociopathy, anger, sadness, whatever affectations your character has. Find another character that you can sort of latch onto for that, and then kind of not exactly model, but like watch how they do it, and then fake it till you make it, kind of thing. It is. I mean, I'll additionally take improv or acting classes. I imagine that would be the same thing. I can't imagine that every actor who's ever played a sad character is sad all the time. But like there are, think of how it would be done. Like for let's use like Tales from the Loop for example. There are plenty of like popular girl, popular boy characters in 80s media that you can be like, oh, I'm this person. This is who I am, right? And then model, or not model, but like base affectations or mannerisms off of that character, and just do it how they do it. I think that's the best tip I can give for that. I hope that helps. Let's see. Do I have time for one more question? Before I look at the list here, any other questions from the chat? Just go ahead and put question in the chat, and then followed by your question. I will say every time I say one more, I think of the there's a cartoon from like I think it's like the early 2000s called Jackie Chan Adventure, and it's Jackie Chan and his niece and Jackie's uncle. And the character Jackie Chan's uncle, all the time, that was his like slogan, was one more thing. And every time I say one more, that's all I can think of is in his voice. One more thing. Good times. Let's see. What do. Ooh, that's a good question that I'm going to save for next time. That is a question I should think about and give a good answer to. Man, Melissa asked a question that I love the question, but I don't know that I have an answer for you. Melissa has a question. Oh, sorry. Skagit says the advice for the playing a character. He said a little is also a discussion with the GM and player to emphasize a stat like intelligence or charisma so the character can shine. Yeah, that's for sure. I agree with that entirely, Skagit. Working with your table and saying, hey, look, I am playing a charismatic character and I'm not there yet. So if you would like, if you could help, in the same way that like keeping secrets and stuff, if no one knows there's a secret, no one can bring your secret up. But being put in situations where you are, able to take the spotlight or emphasize that skill. Yeah, I agree. That is a very good point. Melissa asks a question. She says, "What is the most innovative and interesting new game mechanic that you have seen recently?" I love the question. I don't know that I have an actual answer. Um, and the reason I don't know that I have an answer is because I don't really pay attention to the mechanics of games until I'm playing them, and then a lot of the time I go, "Oh, this is bad. This is a dumb mechanic." Um, so yeah, nothing has really like driven me to see like very cool mechanics from games. Um, I did just recently play Alice is Missing, and that was very interesting. I don't know that it's new to me because that's the first time I played it. But the entire game is played silently, and it is played through text messages through group chat, which I think is very interesting. And it sort of symbolizes like this, not symbolizes, but it sort of recreates small town gossip. I think when something happens in a small town, everyone sort of knows about it. Everyone has an idea or a theory, and that's kind of what our group text was. It was just a bunch of like theorizing about like what could possibly happen, and that was very fun and interesting to play with that mechanic. Um, there's a lot of like interesting mechanics like there's a tabletop game that doesn't use dice. It uses a deck of cards instead. I forget what the heck that one's called. Deadlands, maybe something like that. They use a deck of cards to play with that. Um, a lot of games like Symbaroum and Dragonbane and Call of Cthulhu uses a roll under system where you set the like your stats set the DC basically, and as long as you roll under that, you succeed, or roll over that depending on what it is. Um, what other cool mechanics have I seen recently? There's a tabletop game. It's not a board game, but it's not an RPG. That is it's called the Quiet Year. I find that very fun. It's entirely card based, so like you flip a card and do something. But the game starts with you creating a map, and everyone like adds stuff to the map, and then it's like it doesn't say it's post apocalyptic, but it's like you're a group of survivors. What you've survived, it's up to you entirely, but you like list like what resources you have in abundance, what resources you are lacking, and then every time you play a card you do something. You can either add something to the map, you can add a piece of plot that's happening, but there's a function of the game called like uh, assembly or like town hall or something along those lines, right? And when you choose that one, you bring a topic, and then you all argue about the topic, but no conclusion can be drawn from that move. So it's just you all just argue either for or against it, and at the end of it, that's it. There is no conclusion. And it's meant to symbolize like how in a society like not everyone's going to agree, you're not going to have a unanimous decision, kind of thing. That's a pretty fun mechanic as well. um, and then I would say in several of the Year Zero games there is a base building mechanic that I have not really ever gotten the chance to see um, really at play, and I would really love to see that at play. Mutant Year Zero has it. Mutant Year Zero, Gen Lab Alpha, Elysium, Mechaton, they all have it. Walking Dead RPG has it as well. Um, I think something else has it too, but I can't remember. Maybe Twilight 2000. has it as well. But yeah, that interests me, and I have not got to play it in a campaign or run one, and like actually see that used. I have run a campaign of Year Zero, Mutant Year Zero, but it was very much like a made for stream kind of thing. So we didn't get into like the nuts and bolts of the crunchier mechanics. I don't like crunchy mechanics that get in the way of roleplay, but I do love survival and base building sims. So anytime that's added to a game, I'm a big fan of it. Pathfinder did that in their adventure path. Oh shit. They made a video game about it. I don't know. But in one of the Paizo adventure paths for Pathfinder First Edition or something like that, one of their adventure paths was basically like a fledgling kingdom needs to be built now, and you are given like the deed to the area. But the problem is you have to go clear out the area and explore. But then there's an entire like book about building, and you get like build points every so often, and you can build roads and towers and things you explored. I actually have a D&D game called Crystal Legacy that's based on Final Fantasy, and I actually built a base building mechanic in that game because it looked like the players might be interested in helping to build a town. They didn't. They did not. They left. They left that town. The guy who ran it was kind of a dick. Actually, he wasn't a dick. He was just super incompetent. So yeah, those are the kind of mechanics that I've seen that are cool, and those are some mechanics that I want to actually get a chance to play around with. Cool. I think that's where we're gonna wrap up Ask a Lich. We have 3 questions left on our document. So if you are a patron, get over to the Discord and join us in the Discord. Ask those questions. If you're not a patron, what are you doing with yourself? Figure it out, man. Join us over on the Patreon. That is the best way to support the channel. Head on over there. At the $5 tier, you get access to all of our after shows. That gives you access to posting in our Ask Lich Q&A thing at any point in time between now and the next game. And at the free tier, which is now a thing on Patreon, you'll get access to some session recaps of the non-streamed games. I am doing session recaps for Between the Wasteland and Sky, my home game of Glenbrook Liminality, and I will be at some point doing recaps for Season 1 and Season 2 of Mundus Novus. So definitely check that out. And maybe I might do them for Crystal Legacy too. Who knows? Who knows? Skagga, thank you so much for dropping by. Everyone, thank you so much for being here and hanging out with us. Thank you for all the questions. Thank you for all the insights. That is it from us. I will see you guys next time. So ask those questions, and I'll be sure to answer them. From all of us to you guys. Bye-bye.